Hello, thank you for listening to A Glimpse of the Kingdom. I am David Pendergrass. We're going to pick back up where we left off last time on the healthy habits of healthy marriage. Remember, healthy habit number 1 was with them to wifu, what's in this for me, or rather, particularly what's in this only for me, to what's in it for us. And healthy habit number 2 is healthy marriages have healthy communication. Healthy habit number 3 is a little different. Healthy marriages involve both spouses practicing behaviors that build trust, bonding, and passion. They practice behaviors that build trust, bonding, and passion. I put these 3 together, trust, bonding, and passion, because they do go very well together. I mean, of course, all of this goes together to some degree, but this goes together real well, and I'll explain what I mean by that. Trust. When it comes to trust, I like to use the unoriginal idea of calling it an open book. Grace is a gift. When you give someone an act of kindness they did not deserve, that's grace. But trust should always be earned. It should always be earned. Trust must never be given freely. Now, that doesn't mean you have to sit there and put your arms crossed and everybody's a villain. It's not that you assume people are untrustworthy. It just means it has to be earned. You start from neutral. Think of it like a bank account or a savings account. You start with 0. You don't start in the negative. They don't owe you debt. It just starts in the 0. When you trust someone, without the person demonstrating trustworthiness, you are likely to be hurt. I mean, you're just likely to be hurt. Trust must be earned like a savings account. Now, spouses must always demonstrate that they can be trusted by actually being trustworthy. That is, they actually do what they say they'll do. They're dependable. They always tell the truth. That's how trust is earned. This isn't magic. If you've ever thought about this ever, you realize this is not novel idea, but it's very important because spouses must earn trust. Ideally, you've earned that trust in dating, but trust is something you continue to earn and the savings account gets established, as it were, but you always have to keep demonstrating that you're trustworthy. They're dependable. They actually do what they say they're going to do. They show up where they say they're going to show up. They always tell the truth. Always tell the truth. Don't ever lie. Now, Christians don't lie because it's a sin to lie. That is, in relationships, we do not do that. We don't do it because it's the wrong thing to do. If you're a pagan, if you're non-Christian, and happen to listen to this podcast, and you still want a healthy relationship, I'm telling you that you're ruining it when you lie. You ruin it when you lie. You just do. There's no way a person's going to start to trust you if you don't tell the truth all the time. David, what about little white lies? Well, calling it white doesn't make it better. Calling it little doesn't make it better. What's a little white murder? A little white pedophilia? A little white rape? It wasn't a big rape. It was a little rape. When you're in a relationship and you start defining ways to lie to a person, because I'm trying to spare their feelings, you're lying to a person. Imagine if a doctor lied to you to spare your feelings. Imagine if a doctor told you a falsehood on purpose because she didn't want to hurt your feelings. You don't have cancer. You're looking good. Tip top. Woohoo. You're doing great. Doing great. You must not ever lie to your spouse. You cannot do it. Cannot do it. Now, you need to develop the maturity to handle the truth by being exposed to it, by maybe seeing a counselor, whatever. The point is, you need to tell the truth, but you need to be able to receive the truth. You need to be able to tell the truth, and you need to be able to receive the truth. You need to develop that maturity. And a lot of people are immature in the world. Not everyone's able to handle it. Your spouse must be able to tell you the truth without you losing control, shutting him or her out, going crazy, cussing him out. Your spouse has to be able to deal with reality with you. So you need to tell the truth, and you need to be able to receive the truth without losing your mind, losing control. Now, does that mean you can't have emotions? Of course not. Of course it means you have emotions. What I'm talking about, I'm using these expressions on purpose. Losing control, shutting them down, ending the whole marriage, those kind of, telling the truth alone is not the reason to do these things. And you need to develop that capacity to hear the truth. Now, maybe you don't have the capacity. You need to work with a counselor to figure out why it is you're so, truth avoidant. Why you're living what they call denial. Now, why do we want the truth? Well, because reality is our friend. Just think about that for a second. Healing comes when you live in reality. If you don't realize, if your leg is swollen and it's blue and everyone else going, man, I'd go see a doctor. No, there's nothing wrong. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? It reminds me of Ricky Bobby, of course, in the great philosophical, theologically rich movie of Talladega Nights. when Ricky Bobby's, he thinks he's paralyzed, but he's not. And so they stab him in the leg, and he starts screaming and hollering, of course. But he's living in denial because it's funny in the movie. Some people actually have that problem. They really do think their limbs don't work, and that's a serious condition. They want those limbs cut off, but it's a psychological issue. But anyway, don't you put that on Ricky Bobby. So you want reality. You just want reality. You say, no, I don't, David. Yeah, you do. I mean, mature people do. Okay, healthy, mature people want to deal with reality as fast as they can and deal with it. And then process it. Most of the time, the fear you feel about reality or the unknown reality is genuinely worthless. It was a waste of your time. Most people actually can handle the truth. They can handle reality. The fear you have of what if I can't? What if I lose control? What if I don't know the answer? What would they think of me? What? Is just worthless because it doesn't work that way. There's studies that prove this, that most people, most of the time, actually can handle reality, whatever the situation is. So being a reality avoider doesn't make you healthy, doesn't make you mature, it doesn't make anything better. All you're doing is avoiding a kind of a sensation, but what you're really doing is developing a phobia, and that leads to anxiety disorders. And some of you might have an anxiety disorder right now. Many, many people do. And that may be one of the reasons why you avoid reality so much. But there's counseling for that. You want to tell the truth, and you want to be able to receive the truth, because reality is our friend. Now, David, okay, so I need to tell the truth, I need to receive the truth. What about my spouse? Do I have to tell them everything? Well, my view is, and this is not novel, but my view is you don't need to tell your spouse every single detail all the time, no matter what it is. We're not a priest. Today I was lazy. Today I ate a donut. Today I did. You don't need to do all that stuff. It's just silly. Nor are you going to confess all of your sins to your spouse all the time. You do, however, need to confess anything that affects the couple. Any pattern that might be important. Any pattern at all that affects the couple needs to be confessed. If you are lazy and it's affecting the relationship and you own it, you need to own it. Tell the truth. You need to tell your spouse you're being lazy. We're late all the time, or the dishes are never getting done, or you said you were going to do this, but you haven't taken a shower in a year. You need to tell the truth, and you need to confess it as much as possible when it affects the marriage. And most people know what I'm talking about. That's enough. Every single little thing you struggle with that day, every anxiety, you cast those anxieties on God. You treat God like that, but your spouse isn't God and not a priest. But anything at all that affects the marriage at all, you need to tell the truth about it and come to grips with reality as quickly as possible, then deal with it. And if you don't know how to deal with it, that's why you go see a therapist. That's why you talk to a counselor. That's why you contact people like me. It's because we help you walk through the process and say, here are some tools to deal with reality and get better. It's amazing how many people live in this constant phobia of reality and telling the truth when there's no need to be. I'm telling you, I've seen on the other end of people who say, I can't believe I was so scared to tell them that. I agree, but you were. And so, figure out why you were scared and let's move on with life. And they get better. They get healed. You don't have to be in prison with fear of truth. Okay, that's one thing. But having said that, so you confess everything affects the marriage. So here's some examples of things you would always tell. So you never, ever, ever keep secrets on purpose that affect the marriage. For example, you never have secret bank accounts. You never have secret passwords, secret emails, secret purses, secret wallets, secret friends, secret Facebook pages, Snapchat, Instagram, secret text, secret anything. Never, ever, ever, ever. If there's ever a time you feel yourself desiring to keep something a secret, like your spending habits or a friend you talk to or something at work, then it is imperative to confess that right away and figure out why, if it's a real big deal. Now, I'm being a little hyperbolic here, a little exaggerative. If you feel yourself desiring it, you don't go tell your spouse, I had a desire to overspend. Okay. But all I'm saying is, if you find yourself really getting to where there is a secret that's happening, or you started it and stopped it or whatever, I think you need to tell someone. You need to confess it, at least to a trusted accountability partner, and get to the root of that. And maybe your spouse. That depends on the situation. But you don't want to have anything that's secret bank account, passwords. Never, ever, ever. No secret anything. There should never be. Just complete, again, back to my original expression, open book all the time. Open book, open book. My wife's purse is my purse and everything in it. My wallet is my wife's wallet and everything in it. And every single second of the day, any conscious second, even if I were sleepwalking, and I said, let me see your purse. She goes, here you go. She goes, I want to see your wallet. Here you go. Hey, can I have your cell phone? Here you go. Wait. Is the password? Why is the password different? What's the password? None of that ever happens in my home. Ever. You exchange it all the time. No, David, that's my purse. If you think that your purse is your purse, ladies, you're not really coming to grips with what I'm saying right now. There are no secrets. None. There's nothing held off. Well, David, what if I'm menstruating? What if I'm this? Why is that a big secret from your spouse? You think a man doesn't understand the concept? I mean, come on now. Come on. But that kind of stuff, no matter how little it is, it breeds distrust. I'm telling you, oh my goodness, I'm telling you. One of the major things I've counseled couples through the years, the issue when they've been betrayed, and there's any kind of, I'm telling you, the smallest little bit of hesitation. Hold on one second. Okay, here's my phone. That junk breeds distrust, and they have a right to distrust you when you act that way. If you can't immediately hand it over, you're hiding something, or you even look like you're hiding something. And what I'm saying, because that's the first, there's an open book. These are things you need to confess that affects the marriage. And again, if you find yourself in the habit of doing that, or you did open up a secret email or a Facebook, whatever, you need to tell and get to the root of it and get it out of your life. You don't need those secret friends. I've had old friends I knew, or girlfriends and whatnot, on Facebook I almost befriended and so forth. And I asked my wife, I said, does that matter to you? I don't really care. I mean, I'm nostalgic. It's kind of cool to see, where are they now? But I asked my wife, does that bother you much? And she goes, I don't guess so. I guess that's fine. Well, then I thought about it. I thought, well, she hesitated. They're not, these girls aren't my BFFs. It just wasn't worth it. Like, never mind. I mean, I'm a little sad. Like, oh, it'd be kind of cool to see how they're doing. But that's it. But my marriage is more important. And my spouse's ability to trust me online is much more important than going down memory lane. Like, why in the world? I mean, it makes no sense. I've counseled so many couples. Well, he was just my best friend for years and years, and then I got married. He's not your best friend anymore, dummy. You got married. Well, she's just always been there for me, and I used to tell her all my secrets. Yeah, you did used to do that. You got married now. You have a new BFF. Forever. Nobody besides your spouse needs to know those secrets. Oh, they know everything about me. I could never stop being friends. Man, I'm telling you, you're headed to divorce. Guarantee it. It's a foolish, it's stupid. It's a stupid idea to hold these kind of secrets. I'm begging you. I've seen too many couples go to divorce court for this reason. And if you're trying to re-earn your trust, that savings account has been emptied. And by the way, betrayal empties the savings account immediately. You have to start all over. But I've been great for 23 years, and this one thing. Yep, that's the way trust works. Get over it. That's just the way it works. It works for every human that way. Some things are minor withdrawals. If you have an affair, everything's out. They'll doubt whether or not that's your real name. They'll doubt everything about you. It is foundational. Horrible disaster. If you're trying to re-earn your trust, then do whatever it takes to earn it. Change your phone number. Cancel the internet at home. Whatever it takes to get that trust back. Now, I've got a blog on that. I think I did a podcast as well about what to do when you've betrayed someone. I've got a lot of very specific steps to take if you have caused someone to distrust you very much for something you've done. There are things you can do that will absolutely help the other person heal when you have betrayed someone. When you have emptied out the other person's savings account, there are steps you can take. And I've got a blog on that. I've got podcasts. So look up on my blog, look at my podcast, Betray or Betrayal, what you've done, you betrayed someone. So you need to discuss this with your spouse. Do you have any secrets that affect your marriage? What do you need to tell your spouse? You need to do it now. And the more you resist it, the longer you wait, I'll wait till next year. Oh, he's tired. The more you do that, you're developing what's called a phobia. Your anxiety will increase over and over, and you're teaching your brain it's something to be scared of. Period. You've got to go tell your spouse. I would stop the podcast and go tell your spouse. I need to tell you I have a problem. Men, if you're addicted to pornography, your spouse needs to know that. I'm not addicted. It's just, every once in a while, 3 times a day, a week. If you're having a problem with that, you need to tell your spouse. Now, you need to go tell your spouse. I'm having a problem with that. And I'm probably addicted. I'm not sure what the definition of addiction is, but I need to tell you I have a problem with that. Well, David, she's going to flip out. Then let her flip out. You've got a problem. You deal with reality, man. That's a big deal. What if she's struggling with it? What if she's addicted? Women, if you're addicted to it, if you're struggling with pornography, if you're living in fantasy land with fantasy books all the time, and come to think of it, I'm getting all my emotional intimacy needs met by a book or by other people or someone at work, you got to tell them now. You've got to get on the heart of this and get this stuff out. I've got these friends, these secret accounts. They need to go tell them right now. You better go tell them. You've got to tell your spouse everything. Ground zero, savings account, pure trustworthiness. I'm just making everything I can. You've got to start over. You need to ask your spouse this question. Is there ever a time when you don't count on me? That is, am I completely dependable? So, ask the spouse, honestly, are you always confident that I can be trusted with any and all things? Ask them, do you completely, utterly trust me? Do you trust me with the kids? Do you trust me at work? Do you trust me at home? Do you trust me when I say I'm going to the mall or going to the store? Do you trust me? I'm going to the gym. Do you trust me at work when there are a bunch of girls there or whatever? Do you trust me? And if not, why not? Have I done something to make you think I'm untrustworthy? And whatever it is I've done, I'm going to fix it. And some of you have been through relationships where someone betrayed your trust and, it's almost impossible for you to give someone else their trust down the road. You can heal from that. If you choose to feel defensive and you choose to keep people at arm's length the rest of your entire life, which you can, I've met people just like that, and they become rigid and hard-hearted and stone-hearted cold, I'm telling you what, they won't let any love in ever. The warmth is gone, and they will relive that past trauma. That is no way to live. It's not the way Jesus designed you to live. You can go to counseling. You can process that grief. Well, David, what if people hurt me again? Well, they might. They're humans. Yeah, that's right. But guess what? You'll process it too. God gives us the capacity to process emotions, regardless of the trauma, regardless of the profound, horrible trauma of losing children and spouses and to death. Just hurricanes and tornadoes. People actually come out on the other side of it. It's not the way it used to be. But they're able to process the emotions. God allowed us the capacity to process emotions. You might need medication. You might need all kinds of stuff. Great. But He allows us the capacity to process emotions. And building up huge fences around your heart to where you're never hurt again is not the way to live. That's not the way to live. Ever. Not the way to do it. And you might need counseling. Get counseling. Get counseling. Get to work. There's healing on the other side. I'm telling you, of that horrible, tumultuous river. If you can get on the other side of the river, and you can, with help, you can. And so it starts ground zero with you being an honest person. Simply tell the truth. Secondly, receive the truth. Love reality. Love the way things really are. And if they're broken, get to work fixing it. And you're doing it together. That's the key. You're doing it as a couple. And you can live with safety. Put your head at night and sleep soundly like a baby because you know you can trust your spouse and you can know that you are trustworthy. That's the first thing. That's trust. That behavior, these things, that open book behavior, always open book, no secrets, no passwords, none of that stuff. That's an open book behavior that will build enormous trust. When you build enormous trust, you feel bonded. That's my second major point of this habit. Remember I said it's trusting, bonding, and passion. Let me say it this way. You can trust a person and not feel bonded, but there is a kind of trust that leads to bonding. Okay? This occurs when, I think there's at least two major things. One, you're vulnerable with the person you trust, and the person receives it without judgment or condemnation and validates you. So, when you're vulnerable with the person you trust, and the person receives it without making fun of you, judging you, whatever, they validate you. You feel supported, you feel safe. And two, he or she does the same with you. That is, bonding happens when both people are vulnerable with each other and feel completely safe when they are vulnerable. The two chief vulnerable experiences are emotions and touch. And I want to talk about those things. The two chief vulnerable experiences are emotion and trust. So when you trust a person, which is great, you can trust your bus driver and not be bonded with your bus driver. You can trust your teacher at school but not be bonded with your teacher. You can trust your pastor but not be bonded with your pastor, right? But trust is very good. But when you're vulnerable and you're really open and vulnerable with them, and then you feel safe and then go vice versa, then bonding starts happening. And bonding's not romantic, it's just bonding. That's a deep sense of vulnerability and bond, and that's really good. That's when guys can be really good best friends, or girls can be really good best friends. They really bonded with each other. It's not a romantic, it's just a bonding. It's a deep-seated trust because two chief vulnerable experiences, at least one or the other, has occurred, and you feel safe when it's happened. Now, let me talk about those two things very quickly. Vulnerable emotional experiences. So in this one, people bond when they share emotional experiences together. And the more vulnerable the person is, the more the bonding occurs. This means that the more you open up to someone and they receive it with safety, trust, and grace, the more you will feel close to that person. And this means that you need to open up. I mean, you need to open up. That helps you bond with the person. It helps you feel a really deep sense of safety. It also means you should not be opening up to any other different sex, different gendered person ever, if you're heterosexual. Ever, ever, ever. So, for example, I counsel people in ministry. Well, there are people who might feel very bonded with me because they shared vulnerable things with me and they received from me safety and trust and grace and so forth, and they felt much closer to me. They felt more bonded with me. And I felt a little more bonded with them because I've heard those things they went through, that's for sure. But I don't turn around and share with them all of my deep emotional vulnerabilities. Not a counselor relationship. I don't do that at all. At all. In fact, when counselors do that, it tends to lead to affairs because you start getting more and more bonded, and that leads to the third thing of passion, which I'll go to in a second. But you don't ever show that with a different sexed person ever. In my life, in my marriage, of course, I'm a man, I never share vulnerable, emotional, you might say deeply vulnerable stuff with a person of the opposite, a female, ever. Besides my wife, I don't do it. Can I open up a little bit and talk about maybe I'm afraid of this or I'm processing? Sure. Yeah, okay, yeah. I mean, a little vulnerable here and there. Sure, no problem. I mean, I share vulnerable stuff from the stage when I'm preaching. Sure. But in general, I do not sit down or stand up with other females and tell them all the stuff I'm going through in life and all my struggles and all my this. I do not ever do that. I don't do it. And I know I don't do that because I don't want to be bonded with them and I don't want them to be bonded with me in that kind of way. Because it tends to lead to the third thing here in a second, which is passion, and we don't want that. But in a spousal relationship, we do want that. And one of the reasons a lot of times spouses don't feel passion is because they don't feel bonded. They don't feel bonded because they don't have trust. That's where this all goes together. If someone says, I don't feel the heat, I don't feel the passion like I used to, I guarantee you don't feel very bonded. If you don't feel bonded, you don't feel trust. The trust was broken somehow. Maybe they didn't trust because they betrayed you. Maybe you don't trust your spouse because they're condescending all the time. You don't trust them to be safe with you and safe with your emotions or safe with your problems, safe with your insecurities, safe with your wounds, safe with your imperfections, whatever it might be. These things all go together. So the vulnerable emotional experiences build bonding. Also, vulnerable physical touch builds bonding. So people bond when they share vulnerable physical experiences. They do. This can be vulnerable when you go to therapy groups. Men can be all men in a men therapy group, and they might hold hands at the end of every AA meeting or whatever and hold hands. Well, that's, for a lot of guys, that's vulnerable and whatever. Well, they're bonding that way. Because most guys don't sit around and hold hands. Not in America, they don't. In Africa and some other places, they do. They hold hands when they're friends. But in America, most men do not do that. But if they do that, that's a vulnerable physical experience. That creates bonding. Of course, then there's romantic physical touch. Romantic. That's vulnerable, like, of course, sex, hugging, kissing. These all build bonding because they are typically considered vulnerable and cause your brain to release feel-good chemicals. I mean, they do. So if you're married to a person and you don't have vulnerable physical touch, the odds are you're not very bonded. I mean, working backwards again to help score the point over and over. If you don't feel very bonded with your spouse, the odds are pretty high you are not sharing vulnerable physical touches with each other. Here's a simple. What is simple? For some couples, this is a very difficult homework assignment when I do counseling with them because they don't feel bonded. I'm trying to increase their sense of bond with each other. One thing you do is you can hold each other before or after sex. Sorry, I shouldn't even brought up sex. The point is, you're holding each other naked. Just naked, without having sex. So I say you can do it after, that's fine. If you had sex and hold each other after, that's something. But if you can, hold each other naked. That's a sure vulnerable physical touch, that's for sure. And just hold each other. Looking in the eyes for long periods of time is vulnerable. Sitting there in bed, your head's on the pillow, and you're just talking to each other about what you love about each other, what you're proud of that person. Just sweet love talk, not tasks, not problems, not you're fat, not like you're like your mom. You did cut the grass. You're not talking about tasks. You're just doing, and I'll talk about that more in a second. The bedroom is supposed to be a place for passion and safety. I mean, there's ways to increase physical touch. Hold hands with your spouse. Hug your spouse. Those kind of things. So anyway, so the first one's about trust. That usually leads to bonding. Bonding is when you show vulnerable emotions, vulnerable physical touch. These things are, so when you feel safe and grace and all that stuff goes together. That builds, increases your bonding, of course. Now, so here's some questions worth pondering. I mean, Are you completely vulnerable with your spouse? Does your spouse know all of your fears, all of your struggles, all of your pains, your wounds, your dreams, your goals, what excites you? Ask your spouse, do you feel completely bonded just with me? Why or why not? Do I help or hurt you feeling bonded with me? Do I do anything that prohibits you feeling fully bonded with me? A deep-seated sense of emotional safety with me? Really connected. Do I do anything to hurt that or harm that? Ask your spouse, do you ever feel judged or condemned by me when you open up to me? Do I do anything that prohibits you from being vulnerable with me? Own it and stop it. I mean, if there's anything at all, well, yeah, when I get naked, you start laughing at me. Or when I tell something how I felt during the day, if I'm having a hard time of day, you just laugh about it and say, you don't know anything. You don't know junk, man. You don't know what it's like to be stressed. You ought to go to work with me sometime. That's stress. If they feel shut down, not validated, not encouraged, you're trying to share, open up, you're screwing up. You're not going to be bonded. You won't feel bonded. You won't. So you got to have the courage to go up to another person and your spouse and ask them, what am I doing right or wrong in this? When a person is trustworthy, and it leads to good vulnerable stuff and to bondedness, then it can lead to passion. And you don't have to be, of course, but it can. Ideally, in a spousal relationship, we want it to lead to passion. Now, feelings of passion, so that's the eros in Greek. Remember way back, I'm sure you do. Healthy belief number 1 is that healthy marriages are built on agape love, not eros love. You're committed to the person, not a feeling about a person. Feelings of passion are felt when certain chemicals are released. Norepinephrine, dopamine, I don't know if I can say this one right, phenylethylamine, oxytocin. These are feel-good chemicals. Oxytocin sure is a feel-good chemical. Oxytocin helps you, it feels the bonding, helps you feel bonded. It's the chemical that's released when mothers nurse. It feels very good. Feelings of passion feel this way because biochemical reactions are occurring in our brain and our body. Now, even though feelings of passion are not the foundation of marriage, feelings of passion from time to time is great. And I said this way back in Healthy Belief number 1, which is, I'm not against passion. I'm going to talk a lot about passion. Well, here we are. Feelings of passion are not the foundation. That should never be the foundation. I didn't get married to feel passionate. But boy, it's awesome to feel them. It's wonderful to feel feelings of passion. Outstanding. Woohoo! I'm not against passion. Lord knows I'm not. Wanting to have them in your marriage is healthy. Just not attempting to make those feelings the foundation is what is healthy. You don't want to make them the foundation. So here are some tips on how to keep feelings of passion part of, but not maintained in your marriage. You need to understand that these feelings come and go. They come and go, and that is okay. And I need to pause for a second and let you understand, I hope you really come to grips that it is okay for feelings of passion to come and go. That's a reality. Some people really feel badly. They don't feel as passionate about their spouse they did when they first got married, or maybe even the last month or whatever. Well, okay, my response is accept that fact, get over it. That's feelings work that way. If you don't feel passionate for your spouse, you might say in general, or at least several times a month or a few times a week, something's going on. Something's going on. There's a general sense of passion that you have toward your spouse at different times. Now, it depends on a person's personality type. Some people they're much more passionate in life, particularly feeler types and the Myers-Briggs, which means they tend to be females. Females tend to feel a lot more passionate feelings than men do. That's stereotypical, but it's true. That's okay too. We're just looking at long patterns. So if you're a female and there was a season where you felt passion or years, and now you don't really, find out what's going on. There's a reason why that's going on. Men, if you haven't felt it much in a long time, something's going on. My point right now is to encourage you. It does come and go, and that's okay. But if it's something really outside the norm, something's going on. That's usually when they come to me and see me in counseling. David, I haven't felt passion in years. Okay, if you don't feel passion, you probably not feel very bonded. Bonded probably issue of trust. You just work, backwards. So here's some tips to keep the passion up. In my experience, these are things that come up over and over and over. When people don't feel passionate in their marriage, a lot of times these are major problems that are going on. The first thing is this. Stay with me here. The first one is this. You need to process your past. You need to process your past. But you won't feel passion toward a person that you resent. You won't feel passion toward a person that you resent. Period. Negative feelings will block your feelings of passion. So whatever wounds you have from your past that affect your present, get to work healing. Go see a counselor, journal, process all of your negative feelings you have toward your spouse so that you'll be able to feel passion. So if you don't feel passion now, it could be the case that you've not forgiven your spouse. There might be some pain, some trauma, something, some resentment, some grudge that's blocking it. And you just undo that. That goes back to you don't trust them. Something's happened to hurt your trust, that safety issue. You don't feel very bonded. You got to process it. And you can process it. You can see a counselor, journal, you read your books, you do what you got to do to process those wounds, to go through that pain. Another tip, if you don't feel the passion, is you need to keep your spouse as a priority above other human relationships and activities. Kids, parents, grandparents, anybody, friends, cousins, co-workers, they come after your spouse in dedication. Exact same is true concerning your hobbies and your job. Exact same true. What I mean is, there will be times when you will need to choose between time with your spouse or time with your kids or hobbies, and you will need to choose your spouse. It doesn't mean your kids don't matter or they should be neglected. Of course not. It means your role as spouse is never usurped for your role as parent. You're a spouse first, parent second, child third, etc. See, this is exactly why what's called the empty nester syndrome occurs. It's a very common pattern where people usually in their 50s or so by that time, around 50 years old, they've got kids are now grown up, usually they go off to university, and they move out of their home. Ideally, you're supposed to get out of the house. And so they get out of their house, and then this empty nester syndrome sometimes is a minor thing. They really struggle a little bit, but typically it can be a very severe thing where people end up getting divorced. They really, really have hit some really rocky parts of relationship. A lot of times they don't know why. And it's because for years, usually some significant portion of time, they did not do what I'm saying right now. Their children and their sports activities and problems and all this other just stuff took precedent over your spouse. And what happened was you just became roommates. You paid the bills. You became co-parents. But emotionally, you were divorced. And that's a lot of times why they end up getting divorced. They just, now we argue all the time. And then we have to communicate. Well, I don't want to talk to him. I don't want to talk to her. And she's on my nerves. And I'll just, oh my goodness. This happens sometimes with retirement. When something else was in between you and the marriage, well, that's what happens. And you take away that job in retirement, all of a sudden, man, things can get really rough because all of a sudden you realize it just comes to surface what was bad or unhealthy or gangrene, you might say, all along the way. That can be fixed. It can be healed. So you don't need to get divorced for those reasons. It is one of the common reasons for it. And my response is that's not a good reason to get divorced because all of a sudden your kids are out of the house. All of a sudden you got retired. That's bad reasons to get divorced. Those are sinful reasons to get divorced. And one way to help you not get to that point is keep your spouse as a priority above other human relationships and activities. Again, just be wise here. I'm not being naive. There are times you gotta feed your babies. Well, my husband needs sex right now. My baby's crying. Well, go to get that sex to them. No, you don't. Give me a break. If it's an order of triaging of physical survival, make sure your kids eat, for crying out loud. But you've got to have times with the kids don't get all of you all the time. No, they do not. No, they don't. Not in relationship, not in communication. If you're at the dinner table and your spouse is talking to you and your kid comes up and says, Mommy, I want to, and you stop listening to your spouse and turn to your child, that's bad idea. Your spouse gets first priority. Unless someone's bleeding or there's an emergency, you tell them, you put your finger up, you tell them after you have a come to Jesus talk. Don't you ever interrupt Daddy or Mama when we're talking. We're going to finish our thought or finish our sentence or finish our paragraph. It's none of your business because we're parents. And when we're finished talking, then I will look at you and then we'll have a conversation. You don't yell at them. You don't cuss at your kids. None of that nonsense. You don't hit them. You're kind and gracious, but you are firm. You set a good boundary. Mom and Dad's relationship come first because we were here first. We brought you into this life. We didn't come into your life. You came into ours. And yes, you do tell your kids that. I've told my kids that many times. It's just the way it is. We're going to have date nights. We're going to have times where I don't want you in the room. There's going to be a time when the door's shut. It means don't come near me. Don't knock on the door. Don't come out the front. Don't bring chairs up. Don't think it's funny to not call me. It's not funny. Whatever. I'm bringing hypothetical. Hypothetical. My friends, their kids do that stuff. Anyway, that kind of stuff. No, really. They need to know that. So here's another thing that can help. So passion's bad. Passion's bad. It can really get bad if you don't have if your spouse doesn't feel like they're more important than other relationships. It's going to hurt your passion. Another thing that hurts your spouse and the passion is when you don't praise your spouse. You need to praise your spouse often, especially using their top 2 love languages. You need to remember. I think I talked about this other places. I think in this podcast series, but the love languages of words of affirmation, or service, gifts, quality time, physical touch. That you need to make sure your spouse feels appreciated and praised. This increases the feelings of safety and bonding. Now, most people. I agree. Eric Berne said this years ago as a psychologist. He developed transactional analysis. He said most people are stroke deficient. That is, we're starving for validation and praise. I completely agree with that. I think most people really are stroke deficient. Most people don't get validated. They don't get encouraged. They don't get praised. A lot of people work in jobs that are thankless. People don't say thank you. They don't say great work. They don't say appreciate you, appreciate what you've done. And then they come home and nothing's different in their marriage. You will never want to be passionate and vulnerable with a person who causes you distress or anxiety because you're scared of him or her. I mean, it's not, I mean, you're not going to feel passionate about a person who never ever validates you, who doesn't praise you. And don't ever assume that your spouse has enough of it. Now, this is, all these things are important. I guess I'm trying to be exaggerative, but I can't tell you how much this is common in marriages. I don't feel very passionate. How much do you praise your spouse? Never. Never. She rides me. She tells me how to take out the trash. He tells me how to fold my clothes. He tells me this. She tells me this. He tells me this. Well, no wonder. What are your love languages? Go read Gary Chapman's book, Love Languages. What is it? Now, for example, if words of affirmation are on the bottom of your spouse's list, in the bottom 2 or 3, they don't need it. And don't project your needs on your spouse's needs. So, for example, my top 2 love languages are service and quality time. They're probably a good middle. I mean, almost probably tied, which is fine to do. That's fine, but they probably are tied. I love it when people serve me, and I love it when they give me quality time, unadulterated attention. And I do the same with them. Well, I don't project, but I transfer my needs onto other people by default. We all do that. So by default, if I want to show someone I really love them, I serve them. If I want to show someone I care for them, I will give them my undivided attention. And that's why when people talk to me, most of the time I'm staring them very intently in the eyeballs, and I don't look away, and I don't check my phone, I don't anything else, unless I feel like it's an emergency or something. I don't do that, which means I found it very disrespectful when people do that to me. And I'm patient at first for a while, but if they really know me, if they care about me, like my spouse, my children, my friends, if they can't give me undivided attention, it really hurts my feelings because I feel like I'm not valuable enough for them. But my wife doesn't have the same needs. She doesn't have the need to have unadulterated attention. Her top 2 love languages are different. And so it means that I have to work hard at being conscious about that. She has to do the same thing. It also means that we're going to fail each other in these areas. We're not going to do as much as we can in love language. It's not natural to us. So we have to be conscious of it. We talk about it. And on this issue, I will tell my spouse, I'll say, let me know if I've not been meeting these particular emotional needs as well. Let me know. And I could, I own it and then I change it. I might go a few days without hugging her that much. It's not on purpose. It's just physical touch is very low on my love language. It's probably the 4th out of the 5. It's not on my radar. I don't need a lot of physical touch. It doesn't really communicate too much to me. But she needs it all the I could just hold her like a little baby and walk around all day long, and she'd like that all day long. And so I had to say, but part of that praise issue and telling someone they're great and encouraging, even if words of affirmation on the top of the list, some kind of validation using their love language is crucial. Another thing that will help passion is having fun. Spouses must continue to have fun together. And that means you're in your child state. If you only talk about or chiefly talk about tasks or problems, then you're not having fun. You're not having enough fun. You need to get out of your adult state and move into your child state whenever you can. I mean, really, it's just whenever you need to be spontaneous. You need to dance. You need to laugh. Watch fun movies. Go on dates. Do hobbies together. I mean, really, you need to have fun together. That's going to increase your passion. And then here's a little tip. It's, when you go on dates, ask things like, what's your favorite color? What's your favorite movie? What's your favorite vacation? What's your favorite part of your job? What's your favorite part of the children? What's your favorite? Think of those things that will induce happiness. What's your favorite food and why? Who's your top 3 favorite politicians, celebrities? What? I mean, I don't know. Whatever stuff brings up happy things. Have fun together. Be silly. If you're the person, don't do that. Don't do that. No one likes you. And your spouse doesn't like you either. That's why you don't have passion. If you're the person telling someone else, don't do that. Don't be silly. People are watching. Just understand most people probably don't like you. They probably don't. Because no one likes those people. I mean, do you like people like that? Do you like people who are always going, don't, No one does. No one does. So, if that's you, that's very much severely affecting your passion in your marriage. So, own it and change it and stop it. I mean, that's, and I'm almost done with these increasing passion. Okay, I mean, I'm almost done. And this is the last one. I wait for the bitter end for this on purpose. And you'll know why when I say it, probably, particularly females, you'll know why. If you really want to help increase passion, be in the physical shape your spouse likes. Within reason. What does your spouse think is hot? Ask him, ask her, ask them. And then within reason, get in that shape. Now, you can protest this all you want. He needs to love me for me. Well, you need to get over it. When you dated, you found him or her physically attractive to some degree, and there's no reason this must go away. Now, if your spouse genuinely doesn't care what you look like concerning your attractiveness to you, of course, this portion doesn't matter. If your spouse says, I don't give a rip because they're blind, that makes sense. Unless the blind person says, no, I don't want to feel a gut on you. I want to feel a six-pack, whatever. But all I'm saying is, within reason, get in the shape of your spouse. Well, don't you want your spouse to think you're the hottest person in the room? Or at least in a close second? Top 5? Don't you want your spouse to think you're just so physically attractive? The odds are pretty high they found you somewhat physically attractive when you dated. Well, that doesn't have to stop. It doesn't have to stop. It doesn't have to. Okay. How much do you look like when you dated right now? Is it better or is it worse? If it's worse, why? Now, if you're much worse, what happened? Don't blame the kids. Don't blame your job. Now, outside of a physical injury, which happens, or physical, all kinds of things, having multiple babies, having an illness, I get it. Outside of those experiences, outside of things that were just not your fault completely, if you blame anything else, it means you've had improper values and boundaries. If you blame any other reason why you're in the physical shape you are, outside of some severe physical issues, you have had improper values and boundaries in your life. There are plenty of people who are in great shape who also have healthy kids, work, have gone through a tragedy, etc. Plenty of people are in great shape. They've had babies, they've had multiples, they've had whatever, were busy, they went to school. I mean, on and on and on. All the excuses you make, other people still in great shape. Great meaning a relative term, great shape for them or whatever, and they don't make those excuses. Now, your weight, your BMI, your fat percentage, it's not a measure of how valuable you are. Of course not. It has nothing to do with how valuable and how lovable you are. You're still lovable regardless of the weight you're at. This is just about physical attractiveness. Now, if you're obsessive about this, or you cycle, or you have food disorders, you need to get counseling. You can have a healthy view of yourself and your progress and your physical condition without making it the be-all, end-all and being obsessive or vomiting or, working out 8 hours a day. No. You don't need to be obsessive about it. You need counseling if that's your problem. I'm talking about now, in general, the average person who just kind of let themselves go. Now, at minimum, you must put physical shape in the top priorities of your life so that you can love your spouse and kids for as long as possible. You're no good to your spouse or family if you die of a heart attack or lung cancer due to tobacco. You must say no to anything that causes your health to diminish, and yes, to healthy eating and exercise. You must say no to anything that causes your health to diminish, and yes, to healthy eating and exercise. Well, think about that for a second. But if you screwed up here, well, then just own it. I mean, so you can start making the changes. There are trillions of health books and trainers and online videos and YouTube and YMCA and on it goes. And you don't have to go to the gym. Just eating healthy habits. I mean, on and on it goes. The fact is, if you want to build a passion, in your relationship, you need to be in the best physical shape you can be. And if you dated a person and they weighed, your husband, and let's say he was in basic good shape, the standard, met him in university and he was weighing 180 pounds and was in basic health, just normal healthy shape. You found him attractive, it's great. And now he's at 180, he's 250. He's gained a big fat beard gut or whatever, and he just sits around the house, doesn't do much at all. And you're like, man, yeah, I don't find that honestly, I don't find that sexually attractive anymore. I don't like beard guts, or I don't like this or that. Well, get over it, woman. Well, she doesn't have to get over it. You've blown it. We get married under certain presuppositions that we're marrying a person who looks a certain way, and it makes sense they're going to look a certain way for most of their lives, outside of physical ailments and injuries, and on it goes. I'm talking about things you can control, and vice versa. Ladies, if you're 130 pounds and now you're 230 pounds or 330 pounds, you need to get to the counselor to figure out what happened. Why is it you allowed yourself to get that heavy? And it's not a value issue for your physical attractiveness. It's issue of, something happened, some injury, something happened emotionally. Let you know it's just let yourself go. Something happened and there's a counseling issue there, and you can get healing. You can be made whole. You just can. So, well, David, he wants me to have these fake implants and I'm not beautiful until XYZ. Well, then he's gone crazy. And you can say, I don't care what you want, because when I got married, I wasn't like that. Well, she demands I have a 6-pack and whatever. Did you have a 6-pack when you got married? No, I didn't. Well, okay. Well, she can want that. My point is, I just think that's unreasonable. Now, but look, if you're not being psychotic about it and obsessive or some whatever, and a person says, you know what, that is very hot and wonderful and sexy, and don't you want your spouse to say that about you? They say, what's your favorite part of the male anatomy? If it were a perfect shape, she's going to say, nothing, you're just the way you are. No, really. Do you like chest, butt, stomach? What is it? If your spouse says, let's say she says, honestly, I think a 6-pack is just awesome. Well, the dude says, well, great, let me try my best to get that. Like, why not? Why not? Why in the world would you not try your best? Don't you want your spouse to think it's the hottest thing? Why would you not want to do that? Well, David, I struggle with being obsessive. Then I'll never stop. I'll end up having an eating disorder. Well, then don't do it. Go see a counselor. Don't develop an eating disorder to get a 6-pack. Come on. Don't do that. There are healthy ways to get 6-packs, and there are unhealthy ways to do it. All I'm saying is, your passion is going to be all screwed up. If you do not care at all about your physical shape, I guarantee you it has an effect. So ask your spouse on all these issues, how well am I doing on passion issues? What can I work on? Ask yourself, do you resent that physical attractiveness matters? Did you always resent that fact? And if not, what happened? Why is there a change? A lot of people don't resent it at all when they were 20 years old. They don't give a rip if someone finds them. They want to be hot. They wanted to be physically attractive. You got all pretty, got your dress on, the dude worked out, she got her makeup on, got her best dress, and all of a sudden, well, he shouldn't want that. Why is that? Well, because I got a lot bigger and I'm embarrassed. And so instead of me dealing with the problem of being overweight, now I blame him for his need to see me a certain physical shape. There's something wrong with him. He's shallow. Well, you were shallow when you dated, and he was shallow. But my review is that's okay. That spousal relationship, it's okay to find someone physically attractive. Did you gain weight and in an effort not to change because of your own immaturity or wounds or insecurities or fear of failure, you hide behind excuses about why it shouldn't matter what I look like. They should just love me as I am. If that's the case, you need to go to get some counseling. It's going to affect your passion. And if you're not in the physical shape your spouse loves, if you're not, if you can change it, change it. If you can't, process that. Your spouse, hopefully they will love you and say, I realize you're in a wheelchair, you're in a bed, you're in a coma, you have this disorder. Of course, my goodness, you got some spouse that just all over you because it's not your fault that you're in this physical shape. You had burn wounds, you got whatever. Then you have, well, your spouse is not a very loving person. We're talking about things that you can control. If you can control them, work hard, work out. Anyway, that's it. So I'm done. I'm done. Can you believe it? Just with this one. So healthy habit 3, one more time, is healthy marriages involve spouses practicing behaviors that build trust, bonding, and passion. Be an open book. Be an open book at all times. Be vulnerable physically and emotionally. Be vulnerable. And then, of course, that will lead to passion. And there are a lot of tips to keep the passion going. Passion comes and goes. That's okay. And I gave you good tips of how to keep the passion going. Next time, we're going to talk about sex. We are. God bless you. See you next time. Well, the conversation isn't finished. You can always reach out to me on social media. Are you on Facebook? I am too. At Glimpse of the Kingdom. Glimpse of the Kingdom on Facebook. Be sure to like it and you can see updates there. Also, if you're on Twitter, check me out at Dr. D. Pendergrass, at Dr. D. Pendergrass, or at Glimpse the King, at Glimpse the King. And I try my best to respond to comments and questions on there as quickly as I can. If you want more, there are many more resources on the podcast and my blog. Go to my website, davidpendergrass.com, davidpendergrass.com, and you can see a full list of the podcast, and my blog is available for free. Are you active in a church right now? I'd be happy to come out to your church and do all kinds of classes and workshops there. Check out davidpendergrass.com, davidpendergrass.com for more information. And may God in His great grace give you even just a glimpse of His kingdom this week. See you next time.